Good afternoon. Today we are in session 3. Last week we looked at, it was session 2, at sugar and how sugar affects our bodies. If you missed that session, it's available for you, the recording. You can watch the recording. So to see how sugar affects the body. And we're talking about sugar in its natural form, like sugar cane is fine because sugar cane has fiber, it has minerals, it has vitamins, but when it's processed and into the form of sugar, all the nutrients are lost. So when we take sugar, we are not taking in any nutrients at all. It's just a chemical. And if you want to reverse your diabetes, one of the things you have to do is really to get rid of sugar. Because sugar, we take it just for the taste. It doesn't give the bodies any nutrients at all. It's an acquired taste. So because we acquire it, it stands to reason that we can also get rid of that taste. But we don't get any nutrients from sugar. So that was in session 1, and session 2 was about sugar. Session 1, we talked about how you can reverse type 2 diabetes. We talked about the 2 different types of diabetes. Type 1 is insulin dependent. Mostly young people get that one. They don't produce insulin, so the insulin has to come from outside. Type 2 diabetes, you are able to produce insulin, but the body is not able to use the insulin. So therefore, there's something stopping that insulin being used, and you have to open the doors. It's like the doors are locked. You have to unlock them for the insulin to get in. One of the ways is exercise. That unlocks the doors for insulin to get in, and not taking too much sugar. If you want to catch up on session 1 and session 2, you've got some notes you can download on the website so that you can catch up. If this is your first time here, then catch up on session 1 and session 2. They will be on the website for you to download. But today we are starting a brand new topic on carbohydrates. So we want to see the connection. What's the connection between carbohydrates and diabetes? So welcome to this session. Carbohydrates, sugar is a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates is a group of nutrients, and glucose is just one of them, sugar. And carbohydrates like starches, they're also called carbohydrates, the starch. And when we eat potatoes, they've got starch. When we eat maize, it has starch. So that's a different type of carbohydrate. And sugar is just a simple carbohydrate. It has 2 molecules, whereas glucose has only 1. So today we're talking about carbohydrates, sugars, starches, fiber, and cellulose. All these are under the title of carbohydrates. And then later on, we'll talk about fats and fatty acids and triglycerides. We'll also talk about proteins. All the food groups, you need to understand what they do in the body. And if you are reversing diabetes, type 2 diabetes, you need to know what all these interests, how they affect your body. So if we start with sugars, any sugar, the simplest sugar has 1 molecule, and this is glucose, fructose, and galactose. They only have 1 molecule. When they have 2 molecules, then they're still simple sugars, but not as simple as the ones with one molecule. In this group, we have maltose, sucrose, and lactose. Lactose found in milk, and then maltose is also found in some foods, simple foods, and sucrose in sugar cane. You can get these in simple foods. But when there's a long chain of molecules, then it becomes complicated. Things like starch and fiber, they have more long chains of sugars. Now, carbohydrates, as we know them, they are the primary form of nutrients that is used for energy. And yes, so all carbohydrates are used for energy. And in their starch form, complicated forms, the body cannot use them. So the body then breaks them down into simple sugars, which the body can use. And so within the carbohydrates, we say there are sugars, there are starches, fibers, cellulose. All these are different types of starches or carbohydrates. Other nutrients that we use for energy to a lesser degree are fats and proteins. Fats and proteins are used by the body, but in a different way from carbohydrates. So sugars are the building blocks of the carbohydrates. Simple sugars we have, as we have seen, with one molecule, and then you can have two molecules, and then a chain of molecules. That's when they become complicated, complex carbohydrates. So the primary fuel the body uses for energy are carbohydrates. That's what gives us the heat, in the body and the power to do work. So the carbohydrate is a needed nutrient that the body uses for us to be able to do different things. And we can, as we say, we can use fats and proteins for energy, but the primary fuel the body uses is carbohydrates, especially when it's broken down to glucose. Glucose goes in the blood. And if you're diabetic, you can test your sugars. It's the glucose we are testing in the blood. We can see how much glucose there is in the blood. If you have too much, then that's when you might be developing other complications, different issues. So as we said, sugars are the building block of the carbohydrates. And the most basic sugar is glucose, as we said. When sunlight hits a plant, so carbohydrates are plants. When the sunlight hits the plants, then it stimulates a process called photosynthesis, those who have studied biology, where glucose is formed and then is combined into long chains, which are called starches, like in potatoes. And then fiber also is a complicated starch, and cellulose as well. Other simple sugars are sucrose, fructose. These are the ones with the two chains. And also the others, which we have already mentioned, the basic sugar, the one we use on the table. That's one of the simple sugars we use to put in our tea, in our coffee. We don't actually need sugar. We have acquired the taste, and we can also get rid of it. Other simple sugars, we say sucrose, fructose, and galactose, maltose, lactose in milk. Different plants have got different combinations. In fact, ingredients list, if it ends in O's, anything that ends with OSE in O's, it's got sugar in it, like glucose, lactose. Lactose. Some people have got lactose intolerance. It means they can't drink milk. They react to it. Now, the intermediate length chains of glucose are called starches. These starches are found in rice, potatoes, and pasta. Starch is made up of a long chain of glucose molecules, which after digestion, the body breaks it down into simple glucose, which is then released in our bloodstream. And so our blood sugar goes up. We test the blood for sugar because the glucose goes into our bloodstream. As these chains become longer and longer, the nature of the molecule changes. Chains of glucose can become thousands of units long and may develop many branches. So when the chain is longer than starch, it is called fiber. Fiber, we need fiber. We can't break it down, but it's good for digestion. It prevents constipation. So fiber is also a carbohydrate with a long chain, and it's called cellulose. Glucose is the primary fuel the body uses for energy. It's a simple sugar. When the body has to burn fat for protein, for energy, it breaks it down into glucose. There is a form of starch called resistant starch. It is such a long chain of glucose that it cannot be digested in the stomach or small intestine, but in the large intestine, there are microbes that can break those long branches of chains. So in the stomach, there's a specialized, microbes, like small microbes are the smallest cells that can, living cells that can break down the starches, the complicated carbohydrates. However, as it is so far through the digestive system, it does the body very little good. So this is helpful for diabetics to know, as those starches will not spike the blood sugar. If you eat complicated starch, it will not raise your sugar. So eating foods high in resistant starch, you can eat carbohydrates that have very little impact on the blood sugar, which is good news. Fiber is extremely important. It does not break down into something we can use for energy, but it forms a gel in the intestine. Food particles are suspended in this gel so that sugar from other foods is released slowly and constantly into the bloodstream rather than being released rapidly. So there's no rush of sugar in the bloodstream. It's released gradually so that the body can cope with it. So what happens if we have too much sugar, too much glucose? The body stores it in the muscles, muscle cells, and in the liver in the form of glycogen, which can be rapidly converted back into glucose when needed. So the body is clever. It has all these storage places. And when we are active, if we are gardening or exercising, the body can break down that food into glucose so we can use it for energy, which is good news. But if you then realize, that you have eaten too much and then you cannot if you're diabetic, that is, if you have eaten too much carbohydrates, you need to do something straight away. Go for a walk. Don't sleep. Don't lie down. Don't sit on a couch. Just go for a walk. Get rid of the excess calories straight away. So they're not building up. They don't spike. Your sugar does not go up. So simple sugars are things like glucose, Fats and proteins, they can also be broken down into glucose, but they're not the primary source of energy. Carbohydrates are the primary sources of energy. There's resistant starch, which cannot be broken down in the form of cellulose, as we have discussed. So starches are chains of glucose. Now, we saw fiber can be soluble or insoluble. The body can use the soluble fiber. The insoluble fiber helps us to open our bowels. When we go and open our bowels, things pass quickly if we have fiber. But if you don't take fiber, you become constipated and you cannot get rid of the starch, the food that you have eaten very quickly. So constipation becomes another problem as well. Here you can see a chain of carbohydrates, molecules of glucose. It's complicated to explain in this simple lecture, but that's a chain of glucose, a molecule. And glycogen has more complicated chain, like the starches and other things we've talked about. So in glycogen, a core protein of glycogen is surrounded by branches. You can see all those branches of glucose units. The entire globular complex may contain approximately 30,000. So what you see can comprise 30,000 glucose units. The body is quite complex to understand. We are really complicated human beings. And it's amazing how much all this is going on in our bodies to help us to be alive. And we said the body stores all these in the cells. Even animals, when you look at animals, for instance, if a wild dog scares you, if a dog just pops its head and you're not expecting it, you feel scared, you run very quickly from that animal for about 30 seconds, and then you feel like you cannot run any further because your body has depleted the glucose that is in the muscle cells. So something frightens you, you run for your life, but you can't run forever because you've used the glucose in your blood for energy, and then you come to a stop. But you then realize that the dog is rapidly catching up with you, and then you get another shot of adrenaline, and your feet seem to have sprouted wings. You get this spurt of energy again. You reach the safety of your home and slam the door shut. What has just happened is that you used up all your available energy in the form of glucose, and which was in the cells. Then the cells reached into their reserves and opened up some of those cans of stored glycogen and threw it into the furnace. It's like putting wood on the fire so that you get more heat. Suddenly you have lots of energy. One molecule of glycogen may have as many as 30,000. So one molecule, a small part, can have as much as 30,000 glucose molecules. As you know, glucose are the simplest form of sugar. And so it gives you that space, gives you more energy when you run out of energy. If you see a dog, you might say, oh, it's just a dog. But if it's a bear, you run for it. That spurt of energy, people have been seen, recorded to have lifted the car under when they are frightened like that. They can lift the car. They don't know where the energy came from. But when you're frightened, the body can do amazing things. So it's just to explain that energy you have, sudden energy, comes from carbohydrates, from the glucose. And then when you're not frightened, you can laugh about it or you can cry. But everything in the body is processed in such a way that when we are happy, sometimes the people cry because of laughter. That is happiness. But you might also cry because you're sad, because of your emotions. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, you can use sweeteners. When your insulin level is low, your blood sugar may be high. Your body may be able to convert glycogen. Glycogen is the sugar stored in your body. It can convert that to glucose. Our bodies are smart. And if you need it, but this glucose can not get into the cells because there's no insulin to open the doors. Think of insulin as a key that opens the doors for the glucose to go into the cells that need it. So these are examples of sweeteners on the market. In UK, these are the ones, and we get some of them as well in Zambia. I think saccharin and aspartame. You might be able to get some of these from different chemists, even in Zambia. So Aspartame is a sweetener, aspartame is a sweetener, saccharin is a sweetener, sorbitol is a sweetener, sucralose and xylitol. All these are sweeteners because as a diabetic, we're discouraged from taking in too much sugar. You can use sweeteners instead, but then be careful because some sweeteners have been, seen to have side effects. The best thing is to wean yourself of the sweet taste. If you can eat your food without sweeteners, without sugar, that is the best. Because when you use sweeteners, some of them you're creating another problem. You never know. So, but saccharin, I know, is one of those commonly used for people. Stevia is a natural sweetener. So stevia is made from plants. If you're able to get stevia, use that because that is made from plants. It's not an artificial sweetener. So quickly look at the function of insulin and leptin. Insulin production is stimulated by intake of protein. Any food you eat, if it's protein, carbohydrates, refined, low nutrient, high calorie foods, biscuits, sweets, you name it. If it's got sugar in it, it will trigger the body to produce insulin. And insulin regulates carbohydrate and fat metabolism. Metabolism is the breakdown of carbohydrates. If you eat bread, the body can't use bread. It has to break it down into the simplest form in order to get in the bloodstream to be used by the body. And fat is the same. It has to be broken down. This process is called metabolism, the breaking down of carbohydrates and fat into simplest form to be used by the body. So carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. Glucose is the simplest form of a carbohydrate which the body can use. This can go into the cells, but a piece of bread cannot enter the cells to be used by the body. It needs to be broken down into glucose so the body can use it. If you eat too much carbohydrate, stores of excess glucose are, made. So glycogen in liver and skeletal muscles, if there's too much sugar in the body will convert it into glycogen and store it in the liver and in the muscles, and triglycerides in fat cells. So some of it is converted to triglycerides, which are stored in the fat cells. So you say, oh, I'm getting fat, I'm getting big, because your body has got enough carbohydrate and is storing the excess where there's room in your body, in the muscles. So the tummy might bulge out, the legs become bigger, the arms become bigger. That is a sign that you're taking in more than you're using. So insulin is a food storage hormone. The insulin senses the blood to see if there's too much insulin, food in there. So if there's too much glycogen, glucose in the bloodstream, insulin straight away will get rid of the excess and store it as a food, and that food in the form of glycogen or triglycerides in fatty cells. The body is very clever. So metabolism is the breakdown of food when we eat it. And then we have high and low metabolism. Some people burn everything. They eat a lot. They never put on fat. And some people, they say, I don't eat anything, but I am big, I am fat. So it depends on your body, because some people have high metabolism. They burn everything they eat. Others have a low metabolism. They don't burn everything and is stored in the body. But insulin is responsible for high metabolism or low metabolism. It is the one that's getting rid of all the excess food in the body. So when your insulin level is low, your blood sugar may be high. Your body may be able to convert glycogen to glucose for you to use if you need it. But this glucose cannot get into the cells because there's no insulin to open the doors. So think of insulin as a key that opens the doors for the glucose, which is a broken down of the food you've eaten, to enter the cells so that the cells can use it for energy. That's the simplest way of explaining that. But if the cells are not getting what you're eating in this, if the glucose is not going in the cells, then the cells will be starving. They'll be starving of energy or of food. In both cases, you have cellular starvation. Why do you feel tired so much of the time? Why do we feel tired? It is because we have developed insulin resistance. As you become more insulin resistant, your insulin levels rise. Resistance means you are not able to use the insulin, the sugar that has been broken down. So that insulin is a food storage hormone. It stores the food that you have eaten for you to use later on. And energy is stored as fat. The body is so clever. If you eat too much, it changes it into fat, stores it in the cells as fat, and it blocks the use of fat for energy. It inhibits the release of glucagon. If you have too much insulin, it doesn't do its job. It inhibits, prevents the release of glucose. And then it blocks the use of fat for energy. So instead of you burning your fat, you exercise to burn the fat for energy. It can block that. But normal metabolism is where we convert glycogen to glucose. It means the normal process of using the sugar in our body in order to give us energy, to give us heat. It's like a furnace burning the fire. Glucose cannot enter the cell if we don't have enough insulin. Then let's see. You can see that when you eat, insulin goes up because it's got to get rid of the glucose in the blood. When you haven't eaten, it comes down. So it's not always up. It goes up when you eat, down when it has done the job, up when you eat, down when it has done its job. And then if you're diabetic, it's always up because you're not using the sugar in your body. And then pre-diabetic, if you can see the diagram, the normal levels of glucose, they're about 80. Now, pre-diabetic, they go to 100. If you're diabetic, it's 170. That's too much glucose in the blood because it stays in the blood instead of going in the cells to be used for energy and other things. It's like the key, insulin, the key to open the door, is not doing its job, and there's a blockage. So we are here learning how to open those doors, how you can use insulin. Exercise is one way of using the extra glucose in your bloodstream. When you go for an exercise, you can see the levels drop down if the sugar levels are high, as you exercise, the sugar levels come down because you're using sugar as you are walking and exercising. Insulin spikes. It locks sugar in the cells as fat, prevents sugar from being used as energy. You have the energy in your body, but it's not being used. You can go for a walk, you can run, but you're not using it to burn, that fat or energy away. So without insulin in the body, you have, without insulin, spikes, the spikes. If the insulin is working, you have more energy, you are less tired, less fatigued. The weight loss becomes possible again. Diabetes reversal begins. But so we need the insulin to be level in order for the sugar levels to be normal. And leptin is just another enzyme. It regulates fat storage. And leptin is what tells us when we are eating, it tells us, I am full. Have you seen, when people are eating, there are some people who can eat and eat, they never feel full. It means their leptin is not working. When you're eating, you should reach a stage where you feel full. You can say, oh, I'm full now. But some people have lost that sense of I'm full because their leptin, this special enzyme, is not working in them. It's not telling them you're full now. So they can just eat and eat and eat, never feel satisfied, and they put on weight because the leptin, this enzyme, is not working in their body. And if that carries on, then the person just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So leptin logic is in a normal individual, you eat less food, you lose weight. Starvation defense mechanism does not work with damaged metabolism. Leptin resistance, if you resist the leptin, it blocks the other things, chemicals working in your body. It blocks the thyroid. So thyroid is another organ that produces, substances that help us as well. So symptoms of leptin resistance, being overweight, high levels of stress, we should always try and reduce stress. So prayer is good. We church people, we can offload stress by prayer, meditation, and we have less irritability, mood swings, carbohydrate cravings, especially at night. People wake up at night, raid the fridge or the pantry to eat. They can't help it because of those cravings, but that is lack of leptin. This is what controls our appetite. Then if you have a big appetite, you're overeating, high triglycerides, you might need to be checked by a doctor because your leptin might not be working. And the results are you have high cholesterol in the blood, high blood sugar, you have a fatty liver, if you have heard of a fatty liver, fatigue, you get tired, insomnia, you can't sleep at night, allergies, multiple allergies because the defense mechanism for the body is broken down, food sensitivities, acne. Most teenagers suffer from acne, but as they grow up, it disappears. Ovarian cysts, endometriosis, all these can be a sign of leptin resistance. But don't worry too much about the big words because you just need to know the basics so that you can look after yourself. We have talked enough about leptin. It balances metabolism and it controls normal appetite. That's good, gives us appetite. During starvation, inadequate fat stores are slowed down and metabolism slows down. You have more appetite. Then the brain thinks we are starving. So it can cause leptin to increase so that you eat a bit more rather than starving. The body is a wonderful machine. Leptin resistance causes us to become fat, slow metabolism, but big appetite. But that's what we're trying to avoid. Once you are eating too much, excessive calorie consumption, you need to get checked because it might not be your fault. It could be the leptin resistance. Too much insulin in the body making you feel hungry, or drinking too much alcohol does the same. Overeating, elevated triglycerides in the body, excess fructose. Fructose is a sugar, a simple sugar. Artificial sweeteners. People take artificial sweeteners to lose weight, but we call it a double effect because artificial sweeteners can actually increase your appetite. Most people who are taking these artificial sweeteners, things to lose weight, they find that they can't maintain it. As a matter of fact, they get even bigger while using these things. It's better to do it natural than to be dependent on another chemical. Reverse leptin resistance, you can do it by consuming more fiber. So in closing, we're saying fiber is good for you. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber, and it forms gel intestine, makes you feel full, releases the sugar very slowly, and satiety, feeling that, oh, I have eaten. If you have a feeling after eating that you're still hungry, then something is wrong. It promotes bowel regularity. Constipation is not good. So you need to be eating more fiber, high fiber food, so that we should be opening the bowels every day, not once a week. It helps the bowel problems like, irritable bowel syndrome and diverticulous. These are problems of the bowels. Those, if you don't get enough fiber, you can develop all these things. So just increase your intake of fiber gradually, slowly. Eat fiber first before eating your food. So one thing we say, eat brown rice, you have more fiber. Brown bread, you have fiber. And the white maize looks nice, but doesn't do anything for your body. Eat the whole meal, maize grain, we call it mgaiwa. That is better than that pure white flour. It looks beautiful, but it doesn't do your body any good. So eat more fiber foods with a meal and eat the fiber foods first. Eat your fruit first. It's got fiber. Some people use the fruit as a dessert. They eat it at the end. It's better to eat it at the beginning of the meal, and then that rather than at the end of the meal. When the studies, they showed that the second group that had fiber dropped 25% drop in their weight just by doing that, eating fiber foods, especially at the beginning of the meal. And then we're coming to the end. Okay, glycemic index is just show you Foods without fiber, they spike your sugar very quickly. Avoid sugar is not a food, as we told you. Sugar is like a chemical, it's not food. If you can avoid it, please. Go for fiber. It provides, you feel full, satiety. It moderates your sugar absorption, and it lowers glucose spike. It can reverse leptin resistance. It holds moisture in the bowel. So fiber is a carbohydrate, no nutrients, but it's good for opening the bowels, to keep the bowels moving. Eat, if possible, high fiber, brown bread, brown rice. Go for wholemeal things rather than refined things. Refined things, they look pretty. White rice, or white shima, white ground rice. All those, they look nice, but they are not nice for our bodies. Go for wholemeal. Gaiwa, we call it. Eat like prisoners. Eat like a poor person. Eat like a pauper in order to preserve your health. So all the best. Try and practice. If you have any questions, we have a website. Put your questions there. We'll answer them for you. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Have you stopped? What you You can cut off.